Impact Wrestling, who is the fourth competitor for the Impact World Championship at Slammiversary on July 18th. That is the match that everyone's talking about. That is the competitor that everyone is talking about. Impact Wrestling have been teasing it for weeks and weeks and weeks and continued to tease it last night on Impact Wrestling on Access TV. Now, they even posted out a tweet saying that a former Impact World Champion will return at Slammiversary, but is he coming alone? Is he going to be involved in the Impact World Championship Fatal 4-Way match at Slammiversary? Let's break it down. Let's have a look on who potentially could be the fourth competitor in the match, and specifically who Impact Wrestling is teasing could appear in that match at Slammiversary. Now, last night on Impact Wrestling, they had a big promo package hyping up the Impact World Championship match at Slammiversary, told the history and the storyline that is ongoing at the moment, with obviously Tessa Blanchard no longer being the Impact World Champion. They didn't mention her by name, but they mentioned that a historical choice was taken by Impact executives, and the World Heavyweight Championship was now vacant, and it would be decided in a Fatal 4-Way match at Slammiversary, with Ace Austin, Eddie Edwards and Trey facing a mystery fourth competitor in a Fatal 4-Way match. Now, we had promos from Ace Austin, we had promos from Eddie Edwards, we had promos from Trey, all hyping up about their destiny and their moment at Slammiversary, trying to capture the Impact World Championship once again. But it was the bit at the end of the promo package that got people talking the most, wasn't it? Now, Impact Wrestling showed a cacophony of clips of different potential former Impact Wrestling stars that could show up at Slammiversary and could theoretically be the fourth competitor in that match. Now, we're going to go through all the names that were shown in the video package, but also the names that weren't shown in the video package and could also be the fourth competitor in the Fatal 4-Way match at Slammiversary. Now, the first name that was shown in this promo package was EC3. Now, we've spoken about EC3 at great lengths on this channel, and potentially him returning to Impact Wrestling. I've mentioned previously that EC3 is doing a lot on social media right now. He's getting a lot of people talking about what is next for the former Impact World Champion. He's been doing this whole control your narrative promos and vignettes on his social media. He's been uploading them to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. EC3 has been posting on it, and he's also been name dropping a lot of other promotions. Now, he obviously did the AEW promo last week that he posted to his Twitter feed that got a lot of people talking, dropping a lot of AEW puns in the process, talking about Alpha and Omega, Inner Circle, Con, and still to this day that pun is a bit of a reach for me. But at the end of that video, we saw the logo of All Elite Wrestling, and a lot of people naturally started to speculate, is EC3 going to AEW? What a lot of people don't realize, of course, is that he's done promos similar to this about other promotions. He did one about Ring of Honor. He talked about there being no honor in what we do, there being no honor in professional wrestling. And then at the end of the promo, at the end of the vignette, we see EC3 staring at the Ring of Honor logo. So EC3 at the moment is just all about getting people talking about what is next for EC3 now that he is no longer with the WWE. I think there's a high chance that EC3 could be the fourth guy here at Slammiversary. Now, EC3 has been teased recently on Impact Wrestling, of course. He's been teased in this feud with Moose over the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Now, previously I speculated that we could see EC3 versus Moose at Slammiversary for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. It doesn't look like we're going to get that match at Slammiversary, as Moose is now going to be taking on Tommy Dreamer for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship at Slammiversary. That doesn't mean the EC3 versus Moose feud is dead, though. Now, EC3, of course, his music did play a few weeks ago on Impact Wrestling when Moose had a match. Moose wins the match. Instead of Moose's theme playing, EC3's music starts playing, the treble, treble, treble theme that everyone loves and enjoys. That music starts playing. Moose looks confused. The announcers, Josh Matthews and Madison Rain, they're confused. Everyone's confused, and then Moose's theme eventually plays. Moose would follow up on this on social media by dropping a promo, obviously mocking EC3's Control Your Narrative promos. It looked like it was shot in the exact same place. He actually name-dropped EC3 and showed him on a picture of EC3 on camera during that promo. So I don't think the EC3 versus Moose feud is dead. EC3 obviously could be the fourth competitor in the match at Slammiversary. They're teasing off, obviously, a former Impact World Champion is returning. EC3 fits that mold, but I'm not sure it's as cut and dry on that. I really don't. I think EC3, this feud with Moose has been teased. Now, obviously, there are so many ways they could go with this. EC3 could show up and be the fourth competitor at Slammiversary, win the Impact World Championship, and then obviously Moose retains against Tommy Dreamer, which I expect him to do. And then you've got this Impact versus TNA situation, which I think is definitely something they could do, and Impact Wrestling should definitely look into. Having two separate entities, one being Impact Wrestling, one being TNA, embracing your past. Who knows? You could even do two separate shows, separate brands. Who knows? But I think they definitely could do an Impact versus TNA thing in the future. And potentially, EC3 could be the Impact World Champion once again, coming out of Slammiversary and then going on to his feud with Moose, find out who is the real world champion there. So it's certainly a possibility. Now, another person shown, another two people shown in the video package last night, hyping up who could be the fourth competitor at Slammiversary, were Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Now, Luke Gallows, of course, was in Impact Wrestling previously as Doc, a member of the Aces and Eights faction. Carl Anderson, as far as I'm aware, has never been in Impact Wrestling. The footage showed of him looked like he was wearing a Bullet Club t-shirt, so it may have even been some independent New Japan footage that they showed on Impact Wrestling last night. As far as them being the fourth competitors in this match, I highly doubt it. Obviously, they come as a package. They're tag team wrestlers. They are a tag team. They've signed with Impact Wrestling. That deal is done. Pen has met paper, so expect to see Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson in Impact Wrestling very soon. They've been teasing it all the time on social media right now. Luke Gallows has posted pictures of his old Aces and Eights cut, the old Aces and Eights leather vest. Carl Anderson also uploaded a picture of Luke Gallows to Instagram recently, in which Luke Gallows was wearing an old Impact Wrestling vest as well. Luke Gallows also looks in absolutely phenomenal shape at the moment. So Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are on their way to Impact Wrestling. They've also agreed deals with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Impact are willing to work around their New Japan dates when Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are, of course, available to travel back and forth to Japan in the future once the pandemic here has subsided. So I don't think Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson will be the fourth competitors, but I think that was a nice subtle nod that Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are incoming in Impact Wrestling. A lot of people have spoken about the return of Aces and Eights. D'Lo Brown recently on Impact Wrestling has teased the return of Aces and Eights. I think Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson will be heavily involved in Aces and Eights returning to Impact Wrestling, but I don't think they'll be either one of them will be the fourth competitor at Slammiversary for the Impact World Championship. Now, another name shown on this video package was Mike Bennett, the former Mike Kanellis in WWE. Now, Mike Bennett, the Miracle, and his wife Maria, they have huge history with Impact Wrestling. They were in Impact Wrestling for several years. Part of the reason they actually went to WWE was because of the work they did in Impact Wrestling. They were huge stars in Impact Wrestling, in the Impact Wrestling world. They had great feuds, the likes of Cody Rhodes when he was in Impact Wrestling briefly. They had feuds with the likes of EC3 and others. They were a big deal. Not a former Impact World Champion, so I don't think that's the Impact World Champion that Impact Wrestling are teasing, but certainly two people that could definitely be on their way back to Impact Wrestling. This goes back to the EC3 argument, the Eric Young principle that I'll speak to in a minute, that Mike Bennett, his best work and his best singles run, in my opinion, was in Impact Wrestling. That was the reason he went to WWE, because of the work that he was doing in Impact Wrestling. He got over in Impact Wrestling. Previously, remember, in Ring of Honor, he was a tag team wrestler. Whereas when he went to Impact Wrestling, he became this standout single star, a top heel. Him and Maria, top heels in the company. And I think the best choice for them would be to come back to Impact Wrestling. Also, if you've seen pictures of Mike Bennett, which he has been uploading to his social media, he looks, once again, like with the Carl Anderson, like with other names that I'm going to mention here, he looks to be in the best shape of his life right now. His release from WWE really sparked a fire in his heart, and he looks great. He looks absolutely great. So I think Mike Bennett potentially being the fourth guy in this Fatal 4-Way match could absolutely be a possibility here. He was a big star in Impact Wrestling. He's got roots in Impact Wrestling. He'd be a welcome addition to the roster. He's still got age on his side. He can work. He can talk. Maria is a great talker. She's a fantastic talker, manager, valet. She can work when she wants to as well. I think Mike Bennett might be the dark horse for the person it could be. At the end of this video, I'll say who I think it will be. But Mike Bennett, he's a dark horse there. Don't rule him out completely. Now, another name shown in the promo package last night for the fourth competitor at Slammiversary was Brian Myers, the former Kurt Hawkins. Now, Brian Myers, of course, I mentioned I did a video on him and Zack Ryder a few days ago, does have history in Impact Wrestling. He was a former TNA World Tag Team Champion or Impact Wrestling World Tag Team Champion in 2015 as part of the Global Force Wrestling versus Impact Wrestling feud, the Invasion angle. He was part of GFW with Jeff Jarrett. And he was TNA World Tag Team Champions with Trevor Lee. So he does have history with Impact Wrestling. Of course, like many other ex-WWE stars, he was released in April earlier this year. And he's got a point to prove. And he has history in Impact Wrestling. I think Impact Wrestling would be the best destination for him. I don't think if he goes to an AEW or anything like that, I think he gets lost in the roster because their roster is stacked. Other places, there just aren't other places to work at the moment with the pandemic. We don't know when Ring of Honor are going to start running shows. New Japan have started running shows, but I don't think he'll go there either. So I think Brian Myers going to Impact Wrestling is certainly a proposition that might have some legs to it. I think there's something is going to happen there. And Brian Myers has also teased on his social media the July 18th date. Obviously, a lot of people speculating that's just the non-compete clause expiring. But a lot of people are also speculating that means that Brian Myers, maybe along with his best friend, who we'll touch on in a second, could be heading to Impact Wrestling. As far as Brian Myers being the fourth guy in the Fatal 4-Way match at Slammiversary, I don't think it's going to be him. I don't think that fits him. Even in Impact Wrestling, he was more of a tag team guy. I don't think he fits into that just yet. Perhaps after maybe a year or so with Impact Wrestling, if he has a singles run, if he gets over, if he shows what he can do in the ring, if he shows that he can be this big standout single star, then who knows? Maybe Brian Myers could be worthy of being in an Impact World Championship match on a big event like Slammiversary. As far as him being the fourth guy, I don't think it will happen, but I do think Brian Myers could definitely appear on Impact Wrestling in the future. Now, another name shown on the promo package last night, this is an interesting one, was Eric Young. Now, Eric Young, this wasn't his only tease on the show. Eric Young, we had Johnny Swinger backstage. He was trying to dress up to be allowed at ringside for the X Division Championship match at Slammiversary. He picks up a Suicide outfit and dresses as Suicide on there, but prior to that he picks up a Super Eric outfit. Now this is the second Super Eric tease we've seen in recent weeks on Impact Wrestling. This pretty much shows what I speculated on a few days ago, that Eric Young going back to Impact Wrestling is pretty much a done deal. Eric Young looks to be returning to the company that made him famous, the company which he spent most of his career at, Team Canada, World Elite, ODB, Knockouts Tag Team Champions, and of course culminating in a TNA World Heavyweight Championship run. Now, Eric Young, there you go, he's a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, therefore he's a former Impact World Champion. Could he be the fourth guy in the Slammiversary Fatal 4-Way match? Could he be the World Champion that Impact Wrestling are speculating on? I think it's a very, very high possibility. I would say it could definitely be Eric Young. A lot of people saying it's going to be EC3. I think Eric Young's right up there to be the guy that could be the fourth guy in the Fatal 4-Way match. Like I said, I don't think EC3 is a dead cert for this. I think Eric Young's a high possibility. Obviously, we've seen the more... this was more of a subtle tease because he was just one face in a number of faces shown in this promo package. But the other teasers, of course, were Super Eric. We've seen the Super Eric vignette of someone grabbing the mask and the costume. And obviously last night, Johnny Swinger picked up the costume and the mask. So they're teasing that Super Eric is already backstage at Impact Wrestling. So Eric Young to Impact Wrestling is a done deal. I would be stunned if it didn't happen, unless it's so much of a red herring that it doesn't happen anymore. So Eric Young to Impact Wrestling is going to happen. I think... Potentially, Eric Young could be the fourth competitor here, and then Super Eric is another character that shows up later, and you have a sort of situation, a Blue Blazer type situation, or just similar to the Eric Young, Super Eric dynamic that happened in 2008, where one denies the existence of the other. Oh, I'm not Super Eric, I'm Eric Young, I'm Impact World Champion. I don't know if Impact would want to go that high with what is a comedic character in Super Eric. Now, Eric Young is a serious character. Like I said, former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. When he's serious, he can go. He can work in the ring. He's got history with the company. He's got history with the championship. He's embedded in Impact Wrestling's history. He's one of the guys still going today that has real history going all the way back to the early days of the company. Super Eric, of course, is just a comedic side character. Would they want to involve that in the Impact World Championship? I'm not sure. But Eric Young is certainly a possibility for the fourth guy here. He is right up there as someone that I think could potentially be the fourth competitor at Slammiversary. Now, this is when it gets interesting. They start naming some real former Impact Wrestling or TNA World Champions, one of which is Bully Ray. Now, a couple of weeks ago, this wouldn't have been real news. People have said, it's not going to happen. Bully Ray is with Ring of Honor and under contract with Ring of Honor. But as you know, if you watch this channel, Bully Ray is no longer under contract with Ring of Honor. His contract has expired with the promotion, with Ring of Honor, with ROH, and he's not been offered a new deal at this time because Ring of Honor just isn't offering out new contracts during this pandemic. So Bully Ray is a free agent. And I spoke about Eric Young having history with Impact Wrestling and TNA, being a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Of course, Bully Ray is much the same. Bully Ray is a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. His biggest singles run in his career, his biggest singles success in his career came when he was part of TNA Wrestling or Impact Wrestling. Of course, he was the leader also of the Aces and Eights faction, the president of the Aces and Eights faction, as well as being TNA World Heavyweight Champion at the time in 2013. Bully Ray is certainly becoming more and more of a possibility for me. Like I said, a couple of weeks ago, no, and I don't even think Impact Wrestling potentially would have had plans a couple of weeks ago for Bully Ray to be the fourth guy at Slammiversary. But things change and plans change. Now Bully Ray is on the market. Obviously, he's an older guy now, and I mentioned this in the video we did about him potentially returning as the president of the Aces and Eights. I still think Bully Ray has a ton to offer Impact Wrestling right now, and I don't think age really is a factor here. Now, a lot of these ex-WWE people that have been released, these are guys that are still young, still hungry, and still have a point to prove. Bully Ray, of course, doesn't fit into that category, but Bully Ray fits into a category like Ken Shamrock, where they still have a lot to offer the company, and if they're booked correctly, they can still make great, compelling TV and have great matches. I mentioned earlier in the video, D'Lo Brown has been teasing the return of the Aces and Eights faction to Impact Wrestling. Can you really do the Aces and Eights faction without the president of the faction, the guy who was the mastermind behind the original Aces and Eights invasion of Impact Wrestling back in the day? I'm not sure if you can. Now, could they really put their foot to the gas when it comes to the Aces and Eights reunion and the Aces and Eights return in Impact Wrestling by having Bully Ray be the fourth competitor at Slammiversary, winning the Impact World Championship, and then once again you've got Aces and Eights back in Impact Wrestling. After he wins the match, Aces and Eights come out, or maybe Aces and Eights indeed help him win the match and win the Impact World Championship, and then you've got the return of the Aces and Eights, you've got the return of the president of the Aces and Eights, and once again Bully Ray is Impact World Champion. This could certainly be the world champion that Impact Wrestling are teasing. I don't think initially it would have been. I think the initial name they were probably teasing was EC3 or Eric Young. But I think now that Bully Ray is a free agent, I think it's definitely something that Impact Wrestling should consider. They have to, for me. They have to. He's so interwoven in the Aces and Eights storyline, the Aces and Eights gimmick, and just Impact Wrestling and TNA history. Prior to that, TNA World Tag Team Champion a million times with Team 3D. At one time, they were the IWGP Tag Team Champions and the TNA World Tag Team Champions. There is just so much that they have done, Team 3D and Bully Ray in Impact Wrestling history, that I think it's a no-brainer to get him back in. I really do. So Bully Ray definitely up there as the potential could be the fourth guy. I still think it's less likely than an EC3 or an Eric Young, but it's certainly a possibility that something has got stronger over the last few weeks. Now, this now gets into the 7 names, which I really don't think it is. I think it's just TNA stirring the pot. First name was Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was shown last night on the promo package, hyping up who the fourth competitor could be at Slammiversary for the Impact World Championship. We won't spend too long on this one. It's not going to be Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle is retired, of course. He retired at WrestleMania 35. He lost to King Corbin, or Baron Corbin at the time. Less said about that, the better. But Kurt Angle's done. He's openly said that he wanted to end his run, or his career in WWE, with one final WWE run, one final WrestleMania match. He got 2. Obviously, had the Hall of Fame induction ceremony first. He only recently appeared on WWE TV, on NXT TV, in the Fight Pit match between Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher on NXT. It's not happening. He's not coming back. I know why Impact Wrestling are doing it. They're doing it to, again, get people talking, try and hype up Slammiversary. Of course, Kurt Angle was among the names that was released by WWE in April of this year after WrestleMania, but Kurt Angle was merely a producer. He was just behind the scenes at this point, helping talent try and get over, try and get matches together, try and get promos together. That's what Kurt Angle's role was in WWE right now, or was previously. He's not getting back in the ring anytime soon. I don't think he would want to taint his WWE run. And any recent interviews that you've heard with Kurt Angle, he said that he's incredibly busy with his own business, his own company right now. He has a supplement line. He also has a sobriety help app. He's very, very busy at the moment. It requires for him to be around and at home all the time. And he's openly said he's not in physical condition to it anymore. He looks great physically, but he's hurting. This is a guy who's broke his neck so many times, had his issues with prescription medication and pain pills because of that, because of all the neck breaks. It's just not on the card. So this is Impact Wrestling trying to hype up and get people talking, but yeah, this one isn't happening. Another name that was shown was James Storm. James Storm's a possibility. James Storm is a possibility. He could show up at Impact Wrestling. Of course, he is a former TNA World Champion. He's got history with the company, former TNA World Tag Team Champion, Beer Money, of course, with Robert Roode, and prior to that, America's Most Wanted with Chris Harris, former NWA World Tag Team Champion. His last status, as I was aware, is that he was with the NWA. He was often appearing on NWA Power. He was the NWA National Heavyweight Champion as well, prior to, was it Hard Times or just after that? So James Storm is, as far as I'm aware, is still with the NWA. I don't think that status has changed. Obviously, the NWA is in a bit of flux right now when it comes to Dave Lagana resigning as vice president of the company. They've stopped production on any form of content or programming. Obviously, NWA Power hasn't been on the air since the pandemic because they just haven't been able to film new episodes, but they were uploading stuff to their YouTube channel. Since the speaking out allegations against Dave Lagana and since his resignation, they've stopped doing that. They've stopped uploading any form of content to their YouTube channel, and subsequently we've started to see some NWA talent leave the company. Obviously, Ricky Starks' contract expired earlier this year. He's now with AEW. But Zicky Dice, the NWA television champion, has requested and been granted a release from the company. By all accounts, NWA are taking the stance, if you're not currently with the vision that we have going forward, or when we start resuming content and programming, then you don't have to be with the company. So there's certainly a chance that James Storm could come back to Impact Wrestling, but I think he's pretty engrossed and ingrained in that NWA vision that they have right now with Billy Corgan and what they're going to do in the future. So I doubt it is going to him, but maybe something has happened over the last few weeks. Maybe James Storm has requested his release, but I think we would have heard something about that by now, so I don't think that's the case. Another name where I don't think is the case is going to be returning, but they did tease it last night, is former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, the Icon himself, Sting. Sting isn't coming back to Impact Wrestling, unfortunately. I don't think Sting should be in any professional ring for that matter right now. He's I believe he's 60 or 61. He's in his 60s now. Obviously, his last match he had was with WWE in 2015 against Seth Rollins at Night of Champions, a match in which he got nearly paralyzed, but 2 buckle bombs, couldn't walk, lost all feeling in his arms and legs, still managed to finish the match, but after the match, he was told by doctors you were inches away from disaster and paralysis. Basically telling him then you're done, you have cervical spinal stenosis, you're finished. And obviously he had teased that he wasn't going to get career-ending surgery just in case he could have a match with The Undertaker. I don't think the Sting-Undertaker match is going to happen in Impact Wrestling, unfortunately. And he's pretty much said the only match he would ever come back for would be the Undertaker match at this point, and even then I'm not sure if they should really do that anymore. I think the time has passed. I think the boat's passed when it comes to that one, and certainly the boat has passed when it comes to Sting back in Impact Wrestling. That was an era in his career that helped him after WCW, and he was very loyal to the company. He was very loyal to Dixie Carter, but him returning to Impact Wrestling anytime soon in a wrestling capacity isn't going to happen. Now, of course, Sting could come back, cut a promo here and there. At this rate, I know that Impact Wrestling is well financed now when it comes to Anthem and airing on Access TV. But I still don't know even now, could Impact Wrestling afford Sting? Now, Sting, along with the likes of Kurt Angle, these were guys that their salary was paid mostly by Spike TV. Now, obviously, Kurt Angle was with Impact Wrestling a little bit after the fact, so they obviously worked out a deal at the time. But Sting had such a huge salary and such a huge appearance fee that I just don't think Impact Wrestling could do that now. And I'm not sure, apart from having Sting back on Impact Wrestling, I'm not sure what he would really offer the company at this point. And certainly in a match that involves Ace Austin, Eddie Edwards, and Trey, three very young competitors, it's going to be a hard-hitting, fast style match. Sting in his 60s, no, it's just not happening. That's just Impact, just again, trying to get some big names on their TV screen to get people talking. That isn't happening. So the final name that they showed in this video package, before we get into the names not included, was Mr. Anderson, Ken Anderson. This was another name. Of course, let's get into his Impact career. Of course, he's got a huge history of Impact Wrestling. Appeared with the company, started with the company in 2010. Former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, multiple times, I believe, at least once or twice. So multiple time TNA World Heavyweight Champion. So he could be, obviously, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion or the former Impact World Champion that the company are teasing. I don't think it is. Last status he had, again, a bit like James Storm, is that he was with NWA. He was appearing often on NWA Power. But last I heard, or any news I had about Mr. Anderson, Ken Anderson, is that he was meant to appear at the NWA Hard Times pay-per-view earlier this year, but he was pulled from a match against Tim Storm due to having an undisclosed injury. Now, I don't know what that injury is. I don't know if he's recovered from it now. I don't know the severity of that injury. I don't know. Because we don't have independent wrestling at the moment, we don't know if Ken Anderson would be wrestling at the moment. Of course, he could come back to Impact Wrestling here, but again, I'm not sure truly what it offers Impact Wrestling at this point, apart from having a name back. Yes, he's a former Impact World Champion, but at this point, 2020, what does Ken Anderson offer Impact Wrestling? He would offer name, I guess, and get people talking. He still might be under contract with the NWA, though. Again, a bit like the James Storm thing, and he looks like he has some inclination that he will stay there and continue with the NWA once they return to broadcasting content on their social media platforms and on YouTube, etc. So I don't think it'll be Mr. Anderson. I think that was just a name that was Impact Wrestling throwing out a name there. Now, names not included in that promo package included the likes I spoke in the other day, Heath Slater. I think Heath Slater could absolutely be the fourth guy in the Slammiversary Fatal 4-Way match for the Impact Wrestling World Championship. You look at his appearance Monday night on Raw, just absolutely knocked it out of the park. Absolutely brilliant promo. Got squashed in 5 seconds, but it was his final appearance for WWE. It was a curtain call type moment, and it was really showing what Heath Slater could do. Now, I made a whole video in depth about this, so be sure to check it out on the channel. I'm sure I'll put a link in the description box below, but Heath Slater could absolutely be the fourth guy, and I think coming off of that appearance on Raw, coming off of the hype and talk that he got after that appearance on Raw, he looks great, he cut a great promo, he was serious, it wasn't a comedy character. A lot of people are talking about Heath Slater right now. Now, I mentioned earlier, plans can change. I'm not sure Heath Slater would have originally been the Impact Wrestling executive's idea for the fourth guy at Slammiversary, but he's got a bit of hype behind him now, so potentially Heath Slater could be the guy. Now, another name not included, of course, was Zack Ryder. I've mentioned Zack Ryder on another video here on the channel. Zack Ryder's an interesting one. I mentioned previously that a lot of people are speculating that he could go to AEW, and rightfully so. He's got history with Cody Rhodes. He's a good friend of Cody Rhodes, and obviously Cody Rhodes is one of the executive vice presidents in AEW right now. And look, Zack Ryder is a name that does fit AEW's mold of what they're looking for. I just don't know if he would be used to the best of his abilities there. I think Zack Ryder, you look at Ricky Starks. I think Ricky Starks is a prime example of this. Zack Ryder would come in, have a TNT Championship match with Cody Rhodes in an open challenge, and then after that, I think he would just appear in the crowd, appear on Dark, and then maybe occasionally appear on Dynamite once every few weeks. I think in Impact Wrestling, if Zack Ryder came in, he could easily be a world champion. I mentioned a bit about Heath Slater. We know the potential that Zack Ryder has. We know the following that Zack Ryder has. And he's one of these WWE names. He's not obviously as young as he once was, but he's still a young guy. He's still got so much ahead of him in terms of his career. And he's got a point to prove. He wants to show that he can be a world champion. And he can do that in Impact Wrestling. I think that's absolutely a possibility. So Zack Ryder could be the fourth guy. We haven't heard much about it. He has teased the July 18th date. I think that's just to do with his non-compete clause. But if Brian Myers is coming in, maybe Zack Ryder comes in too. But I'm not sure I'd want to see Zack Ryder in a tag team in Impact Wrestling. I think he'd be best suited to the main event scene. So Zack Ryder is a possibility. Don't rule him out. And finally, a name, again, it wasn't mentioned because there's no footage of him in the company. That would be Rusev, Miro, as he's going online now. I don't think it is going to be him. I think if Rusev goes anywhere, I think it will go to AEW. I think he's a big enough star that if and when, to be honest, he goes to AEW, he'll be appearing on AEW Dynamite most weeks. He could certainly be a main event player there. He's got a lot to offer. Great personality, great look. Look, he had a WrestleMania match against John Cena. He was undefeated for a year or over a year in WWE. He's got something, hasn't he? He's got personality. He can talk. He's looks like a beast. To be honest, if Impact Wrestling managed to pull it off and got Rusev into Impact Wrestling, I would strap the Impact World Championship to him and then just ride him to the moon because he would be such a huge get for Impact Wrestling. But unfortunately, I just don't see that one happening. So if you push me up against the wall and said, who do you think is going to be the fourth guy? It's a tough one. It's a very, very tough one. Out of all the names we've just spoken about there, I think there are three names that I think are highly likely. And I won't make a. I'll put my neck out on the line. I will go for someone. So the three names I think are likely. I think EC3, obviously. It makes a lot of sense. I think Eric Young and I think Bully Ray. I think they're the three most possible names that we could see in the fourth spot there. I think if you push me for an answer, I think the one most likely that we're going to see is EC3, right? That's the one that's been teased on Impact Wrestling. We've heard his music. We've seen his teasers on social media. He's in his online feud with Moose. I think the scenario in which they'll go with is have EC3 return at the pay-per-view Slammiversary. I think he'll win the Impact World Championship, and then we will have an EC3 versus Moose feud going forward. Impact World Champion versus TNA World Champion. Who is the real World Champion? Impact versus TNA. I think that's the way that they'll go with it. Although what I would like to see is the Bully Ray one. I'd really enjoy if Bully Ray came back, won the Impact World Championship, and we got a full-fledged return of Aces and Eights. I think that would be a lot of fun. I just don't know if it will happen right yet, but I think it's definitely a possibility for the future though. So watch this space when it comes to that. So that is a 31-minute video. We've gone through every single competitor. If I've missed anyone that you think could be the fourth competitor, let me know in the comment section below. Who do you think will be the fourth competitor at Slammiversary for the Impact World Championship in that Fatal 4-Way match? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms on the screen right now. That's at 365Wrestle on Twitter and at WrestleNews365 on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you've come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.